Awesome. Welcome back to Foiling Week 2021 and the Gurit Forum. I am Chris Museler, your host, and with me is Bruno Gentoli. And we're not doing too many big projects. We're talking to people about their opinions and about sustainability, accessibility, and safety. Those three pillars of Foiling Week. But this project is really special. It's born of a Foiling Week initiative to promote the best practices in terms of sustainability, and in this case, in terms of production, with the SuMoth challenge. Su meaning sustainable, moth meaning the international moth class. And we have three or four teams total, Bruno?
We have 4 teams today here.
Yep. Cool.
Discussing about, yeah.
And Bruno's a really special person that has organized this because he came into Foiling Week with a university challenge to build a foiling C-class catamaran. I mean, if it's hard to pick a much better university project than building an awesome flying boat. And I think all the 4 teams here would agree that they're kind of cheating the system, learning and working on foiling projects and working on sustainability all at the same time. So without further ado, Bruno, please let me know, and this is so important to the whole community. These students are kind of breaking ground for everyone who's not brave enough to create an industry that's sustainable. Bruno, give us just a real brief on the start of the SuMoth challenge, introduce these 3 teams, and then tell us where we are right now.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So, as you said, the SuMoth challenge started with an initiative as I built with my team in ETS at Montreal, the C-class. I realized that the amount of carbon fiber, especially that we were using for building it, and we didn't care about how much we were throwing it away or if we had to build new parts. So I was feeling guilty on doing all this stuff without really caring. So the idea was to continue with the student competition. The C-class was more professional. We were kind of the underdogs coming into this professional competition as students, to build something, to bring some competition, to challenge the students to, okay, let's make something that is efficient, that it's fun, that it's fast, that has foils. But at the same time, we try to break the ground on bringing sustainability into it. So that's how I brought the idea to Luca, and we moved forward, and it was a blast ever since. We are really happy to have 7 teams registered. With COVID, it was a little harder for us, and especially for the teams. They were out of the lab. They couldn't really continue with the manufacturing. But one of the teams managed to finish their boat, and it's been sailing. The other ones are in the building. So that's it. The idea is bringing into efficiency with a smaller carbon footprint and still having fun and being fast.
Awesome. So let's introduce the teams that are with us today to talk about their progression.
Yeah. So we have, unfortunately, I will move the camera so you can actually see it. We have the Polito sailing team there, and where they will say hi. we have the Padova sailing team, so you need Pavia, excuse me, Padova, and Polito sailing, Polimi sailing team there. That behind still on the room, we have a bunch of other members that wanted to get in, but unfortunately, because of COVID, we cannot let everyone in.
Right.
So, yeah. That's the 3 teams, and we have Noah Ferrarotto from ETS Montreal that it's joining us online.
Yeah,
the other special guest that we have on the screen, I will let him introduce himself. It's Sergio Caramel, who is a former Milieu Nevela and SuMoth Challenge student that actually he finished, and now he's working for Northern Light Composites as a project manager for the Ecofoiler.
Hi guys.
Awesome. Good to see you. Thank you. And it's awesome to see some of these concepts move into the practical space, recreation, manufacturing, and and transportation, really. So I guess my first question for the group, and then everyone can bring us up to speed right now. Bruno, there are different stages of this competition, and everyone had to kind of come up with a concept. And our biggest discussion today, because we're going to have 2 SuMoth sessions, is to talk about the sustainability aspect of it. There's one thing to talk about just the materials or the design components of something, the practical nature of how you make a moth fly, some componentry issues, foil design. But to talk about how to do this sustainably is like, I don't even know where to start. So what I'd like to do is take a lead person from each team and to tell me what the very first conversation was when this project came along, as how to frame this design and build project around sustainability. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't an easy conversation. So, but maybe if they can give me just a brief description of what the philosophy of each team was as far as sustainability, where were they going to put most of their focus in terms of addressing the sustainability issue?
So who would like to start? Polito?
Thanks to this competition, sustainability became a project parameter, and not something we take care of at the end of it or a partial side part of it. SuMoth dollars helped a lot to understand which material and also the process that are involved. So this competition, these rules guided us a lot in the design process and everything. For this purpose, we focused our attention on materials and the process itself. We try to minimize as much as we can milling times and all the machinings that were not that are dangerous in terms of energy, as we all know. And in fact, we use basal fiber for materials, balsa and PET as a core. We tried both of them, trying to improve even the process, and we focused a lot on the molds. Okay, trying to find ideas and solutions, such as for the deck we used we changed the shapes of the deck, simply choosing something. Choosing a plate and a mold that would be really, we use an old mold, but a deep attention was made for the good mold. We tried to find the best compromise between quality and sustainability, trying to minimize SuMoth dollars involved in it, and such as and in parallel and as a consequence the impact using Mindshift 360. We noticed a lot of improvement, changing the process. And what else? Also the appendage molds. It was really hard to find a compromise between for the mold material. We explored different polyurethanic foams. Thanks. Trying to find best compromise, trying to select the best density that guaranteed a good quality and low weight. We even applied. We tried to minimize everything of that and also. What else?
Cool. And Bruno, I want to, I'm hearing, one of the easy ways to get started talking about the sustainability, which is like you just said, it frames your entire project is to talk about the materials. Let's move on to the next university. And my question about their approach with sustainability is, we're just talking about materials. Maybe everyone's experimenting with different materials, but still be able to have performance and strength for the design. Is there also a discussion when you talk about this project, and maybe Bruno, you can tell me if there's a requirement in terms of how you live, in terms of how you work the project, meaning that there are requirements for everyone in terms of how you drive to your to work, and is everyone using single-use, people using single-use water bottles, or you bring your own water bottle? And then also to what Bruno's saying, when he built their C-Class catamaran, so much went into the dumpster. So maybe the next university can tell me about how they deal with waste, and if that's a sustainability aspect of the project.
I'm not sure I got the question right.
Yeah.
What Chris is asking is if this is just to make the point. Is not part of the competition yet. Maybe we're gonna try to involve it, but we just touched the parts of the manufacturing of the boat and the materials and all the impact of those behaviors, let's say, and materials. But it's a good question. It's already quite hard to build a moth the way we put it into the rules. I think all the teams they agree with that.
Yes.
And maybe we'll make it harder, or we will go into more into depth once we have a nice fleet, and then we can go further into this. What Domenico was referring was the SuMoth dollars, which is a virtual currency that we invented to kind of make it costly those materials that are really polluting, like, let's say, EPS foam, which is really cheap to buy, but it's really bad for the environment. So I will give the word to Padova and Polimi, that they can exploit on that point.
Yeah, and go forward in terms of your sustainable philosophy, where you guys have put your most effort into to address that.
Yeah.
Can we get closer, because it's really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to hear, actually.
We try our best to do two rows.
I guess they can still see us. I guess they can still more or less see us. I know that.
Yeah.
You are pointing at this.
There we go. All right. So we're talking about where you've put the most effort into your into the sustainability aspect of the project.
Yes. So hi, I'm Marco Pitteri from a multi-selling team of the University of Padova. So our first the thing that made it, we took more time to think about were actually the molds.
The molds.
We actually really had to manufacture, and we from the beginning we understood there were a big component of waste and they required a lot of materials. So we decided to make them fully out of plywood. We used plywood for them, and multiflex to give the shape. So they are entirely made out of wood, and that was quite a challenge of its own, because we didn't use any fancy machine to make them. We plotted the references on the sheet of wood we had to cut, and then we cut them with really common power tools we had. So that was a big concern. Then there was the choice for the materials for the boat, and that was well, for the fiber it was kind of a no-brainer. We chose flax fiber, which is a linen fiber, which has really decent properties, and it has a negative carbon footprint. So that was really ideal for the purpose. Then we used PET core, which is both recycled and recyclable. And then the trickiest part of all was to choose the matrix. So we had to choose between epoxy resin and thermoplastic resin, which is called helium, which has the great advantage of being recyclable, both long fibers and also resin, but it's really hard to manufacture since it's only an infusion. It's an infusion only resin, and it requires quite a good vacuum on the mold,
right?
Because of the catalyst use. So it was trickier instead of a conventional epoxy resin. But the fact that it was recyclable made us dare to use it. So we took this. We had an older boat which was made out of this resin, and we tried to separate the matrix from the fibers using acetone, which proved successful. We were able to extract the fibers and the used resin, and without losing a lot of mechanical properties on the side of the fibers, and without using too much finish quality. We now are trying to see if it's what will be the quality of the recatalyzed resin, whether it will form a decent product or not. But we are still doing some research on it. But yeah, this is the main focus on a challenge, on a philosophy to design sustainable boat, to have a product that is both eco-friendly in the materials with the fibers used that are of natural origin, and also which is practically recyclable and not only theoretically recyclable, without recurring to extremely costly and environmentally unfriendly procedures to obtain a renewed product.
Right. And what I'm taking out of this, we're going to move on. Bruno, we'll move on to Noah from Rafale. Yep. And the thing that I'm taking away from this is we hear of things that you are all discovering. I heard about flax and linen, as materials to use, but the cycle, what's it called? Marine Shift 360, and thinking about the life cycle of everything, and hearing about recatalyzed resin and removing the fibers using acetone. Moving on to Rafale, what is one of the things that you're working really hard on that is a process that is, falls in line with the sustainability, either process or material, but process?
Yeah, sure. So it's not a word that got mentioned earlier was infusion.
Yeah.
And infusion is basically a way to really get the minimal amount of resin into your fiber as possible to make it as light and strong as possible.
Right.
And so that's a technique that's used in like very simple structures like pleasure craft all the way up to aerospace. But its main advantage is that it basically eliminates the need for an oven or an autoclave, which is something we would definitely want to avoid in the future, all while maintaining a very desirable compaction. And so in the end, you end up getting really good properties with a process that was done completely at room temperature using a pretty minimal amount of energy. So in terms of process, we definitely go for like room temperature processes as opposed to ovens or other things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that gets rid of energy consumption completely.
Completely. Also using dry fibers, which I think all teams are doing right now. They're just cheaper, so like that's win-win. but definitely eliminating the need for freezer storage, as you would with prepregs, which were sort of the benchmark for most performance-driven enterprises. So definitely going strong on that front as well. And infusion and dry fibers are like match made in heaven. So
yeah,
it's good for us.
Cool.
Awesome. Bruno, we're going to move to Sergio.
Let's move first to Milano, because they have a pretty interesting material they've developed to actually use for the molds that I think they can talk about.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And that's an area that I didn't consider. The molds. That's a big amount of material, and a lot of effort goes into a lot of waste is created. So yeah, tell us more.
Hi, I'm Nicola Fadabini from Politecnico di Milano. Sustainability was one of the major issues in our project, and we paid extra careful to this aspect. In particular, we focused on the possibility to reuse and use reused materials such as Glegnite. With our sponsor Rivieraska from Bergamo, we were able to develop a material which is able to be milled, and it's fully recycled, and it can be used furthermore for developing in next years. And this material in particular offers a good compromise between obtaining a good layering surface for the whole, and of course the capability to be renewed and reused. And so our plan is to use the same material after the middle of this year and the nomination of the hull to reuse it for the next year. And we were able to find out that offers a good compromise, and we were able to obtain an optimal skin surface, which is particularly useful for a good takeoff, to minimize drag and minimize takeoff speed. And also to the sail, thanks to our sponsor Quantum from Genoa, it was possible to use lit fibers to fabricate the sail, and also used sails were used to fabricate terraces. And a further aspect for what concerns appendices, we used aluminum because it was the best compromise to obtain a good layering of the carbon skins of the surface, and it will also be reused in next years. And the final aspect is what concerns our boom, because there are a lot of carbon fiber waste materials. So we decided to use broken ones and just repair them with new layering and reinforcing the structure.
Yeah, great. So actually, the SuMoth Challenge promotes the use of old and broken parts, like upcycling. So the Polito sailing team, for example, has the whole wings of their moth, of Keth, that's their name, made out of broken windsurfing masts that I'm sure you and me, we've broken many over the years. And it's awesome to see how, well, Milano bringing back the broken booms from a moth, broken windsurfing mast, and that's the whole idea. It's to send the least amount of stuff to the trash as possible. But before we continue further on SuMoth, I want to give the word to Sergio, who is a former student from Padova, if I'm not mistaken. And he was actually playing with this Ilium resin, and he brought all this experience to Northern Line Composites to apply these techniques with flax, with this thermoplastic infusible resins, and some other things that I will let him discuss. So welcome, Sergio.
Hi, everybody. So we founded the startup of NLComp with the aim, the target to finding a solution to the problem of the composite based on the fiberglass and epoxy resin. After months of research and work, we are able now to build our boats with a completely new technology called air composite, for which we have now also a license. And this material is made up linen fiber and recycled carbon fiber, so short fiber, with a matrix of thermoplastic resin, so the helium resin by Arkema. The key point of this material is the resin, because the thermostatic resin isn't reusable or recyclable. Instead, the thermoplastic resin is completely reusable and recyclable. We are building two brands of boats. So a small dinghy boat, a sport boat, and now we are projecting a foiling boat with the helium resin. We have done two products: Eco Primus, that is a small single-handed dinghy launched last summer, and Eco Racer, that is a 7-meter that is going to touch the water during next month. And now, in this particular moment, we are working on a new project that is Ecofoiler, that is a single-handed foiling boat. So we are challenging. We are trying a new challenge in the foiling sector. So after the experience made with the Eco Primus and the Eco Racer, we are studying a completely new concept of eco-sustainable and easy foiling boat. So our goal is to project to project a boat in which we will join the use of recyclable materials with the easy foiling concept. So I think this goal is difficult to achieve, but we have a very experienced or strong team, because we have with us Matteo Polli, that is a designer, and Matteo Lederi, that is expert in CFD analysis. He works with Luna Rossa and before with Bennesley Racing. And we are projecting a completely new mechanism of regulation of the foil without the wand, and to reach a really easy foiling boat, usable by everyone. And moreover, we are using a completely eco-sustainable and recyclable material. But moreover, now with the Ecofoiler, we are going to use a new type of dye for the boat. In fact, we have a partner that is Breton, a multinational company that provide us the dyes of the hull, and this hull will be made with an additive manufacturing technique with thermoplastic material. So also the dye will be reusable and recyclable. And I think this is a special step towards the goal of all these projects. So to find a completely circular economy of the project of a boat.
Awesome. And the one thing that I am really excited about is that Sergio, you are talking about the practical application. Taking the look that the students are looking at, this holistic view, every little part. The fact that not only do you use recycled materials, but you consider making sure that however you produce the product, that is recyclable. Which no one usually thinks about the end of life, of the product. And I think that it's probably what the students are working on right now, is something that is going to inspire and show that it actually works. If you consider this from the beginning, we don't have a bunch of sailboats in a landfill. And that it would be a global change. And that's what's so exciting about, probably for me, that's the most exciting part about the SuMoth challenge. And also the other side of it is that as a consumer, we just talked about this in the previous session with surf foiling. I think that there are people that feel a little guilty for what's under their feet. And maybe the market would be happy to take, maybe not even a step down in performance, but to be able to feel better about what they're using. I want to bring in Michel Marie, right, Bruno? Is he on board?
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Michel.
Hi.
So Michel Marie, is a pretty broad individual, but I certainly know about you through your America's Cup efforts, and what with BAR Racing. I wanted to see, we're talking about, talking to Sergio, talking about the students. We'll talk later about the experiences this morning on Lake Garda with one of the SuMoths. But we know that, the SuMoth that sailed on the water this morning is not a Mach 2 moth. It's not an exoset. It's not this very precise, nothing, we're not worrying about waste or anything, just making this awesome piece of equipment. And Michel deals with events like the America's Cup where they feel the same way. I mean, 11th Hour Racing, one of our sponsors, is really trying to influence the way boats are made and the way events are run. But Michel, how far away are we right now from using the solutions that these students are creating to the way boats are built around the world right now? Does it have to be incentivized and mandated that they use these materials, or do you think naturally events and rules, design rules, are going to incorporate these practices?
Well, very broad subject. Well, first of all, thanks for all the competitors, and I've spent the last few days reading the reports and very, very interesting stuff and some great findings. It's great work, and it's great to see you guys going in that direction. You're definitely the future. But going back to your question, I think, yes, things are going to be changed by the rules. I mean, we're showing it with this competition, the SuMoth competition. But if we look at the last America's Cup, we at the start of the last Cup cycle, Team New Zealand asked us to look at the environmental impact of building an AC 72 at the time. And we came to the same conclusion as you guys have come up to, with which the molds are probably 50%, around 50% of the impact of building the hull of AC 75. So last America's Cup rule incentivized a series of sustainability criteria, and each team had to fulfill 2 out of 7, if my memory doesn't fail me, 7 criteria. One of them was LCA analysis, which is always a good starting point to see where the impact are. I mean, we talk a lot about certain materials being more environmentally friendly than others, but it's very important to look at it in the context of a life cycle analysis, and in particular, the combination of material. For example, flax might be less CO2, let's say, environmentally, be more environmentally friendly than fiberglass, but it will use more resin. So that's the aim of a life cycle assessment, is you look at every aspect of a product system. If we look at recycled carbon, which was one of the incentive in the last America's Cup rule for mold making, recycled carbon use a lot more resin than virgin carbon. And our studies have shown that if you use more than 10% of recycled carbon within your layup of your mold, you actually are going to have a higher environmental impact than if you don't use any. So there is a threshold to follow, and people have to be mindful of those shortfalls. Like, you can't really go blindly in one direction. You need to look at the big picture, and that's where LCA come into play. So if we concentrate on recycled carbon, yes, we made, if I speak about the Ineos team, we made our carbon fiber mold out of the waste of AC 35. And it's a showcase of the circularity aspect of where the composite industry needs to go. But there's still a lot of reticence in terms of processing recycled carbon. It's not that easy. As I said, it uses a lot of carbon. So there is a lot of techniques to put in place to go away from business as usual, so we can have, at the end of the day, benefit in our practices.
Awesome. And that does put the big picture into perspective, and it is encouraging to know that it's the America's Cup right now, even though we might perceive it as like no expense spared open checkbook event, that there are efforts in terms of reining in the amount of waste, controlling that footprint, looking at life cycle assessment, CO2 impact,
Yeah, and that's why initiative like 11th Hour Racing started 5 years ago with Land Rover BAR, which now, 5 years later, it's now a tool which hopefully will be available for the wider community towards the end of the year. It's those type of initiative which has a long-term vision, which will bring changes to the industry. So it's great to see all the students having had a play and having had, let's say, coming up with scenarios which are going to make things better.
Awesome.
At the end of the day, we need to use less to produce more, and that's the only way we can reduce our footprint.
Cool. Bruno, the one thing I wanted to do and give everyone an opportunity, we have an awesome participation here, and two things I want to do to kind of wrap this up. We can talk for a long time, but luckily we have two. This is the first of two SuMoth sessions. We have one tomorrow about the practical design elements of these projects, which is fantastic. I'm excited to see performance-wise and mechanically how everything works. But two things I want to give, maybe just one person from each team an opportunity to discuss, and then we'll talk about how the sailing went, and we'll close on that. The one thing that we noticed just with anyone who has a good, clear look at a new concept, which is a new concept to be more environmentally friendly with design and construction, manufacturing, and use of a boat, is you have a perspective that a lot of people don't. You have a vision. So if everyone can, one person from each team chime in, what recommendation do you have for manufacturing companies, design manufacturing houses in any space, from what you've learned from this project? Where can they make simple impacts in terms of reducing their their global footprint and move forward in sustainability? What have you learned from this project that you can give advice to a big corporation, even if it's something like Persico? What advice can you give to Persico, who's building and manufacturing boats and parts?
Maybe we can start with Milano, go backwards, and finish with the Torino.
Yeah.
Yeah,
give some advice to Persico.
Maybe the best piece of advice I can give is to adapt to the things we have and reuse as many as possible. And try to think about and project something that can be readapted and used for further applications.
Cool. Yeah, next. Excellent.
So I would tell Persico, CDK, all the big boys and girls, every non-structural component should be made from biosourced fibers. So that is basically flax, basalt, hemp, anything that is not carbon or glass, basically.
Yeah.
And that's just made the biggest impact for us. And we saw it using Marine Shift 360. There's just no match. So yeah, natural fibers.
That's awesome. And as something very simple too. And like the Nike ad says, just do it, right?
Just do it.
Cool. Who's next? Advice.
What advice? Well, it's a hard question.
No, know you have an opinion.
Well, I suppose that big companies like Persico have quite little to learn from like a team like us. But I think that it's just a matter of philosophy, because they have the resources to plan and make things better than us. But I think the way they approach the problem with the footprint, with the end result, and with the end waste clear in mind, knowing what impact is having what they are doing, could give quite a good input to the industry to move forward and research. Pass on the research and our intention also to be the players in the field.
Cool. Go, Bruno. Yeah,
what are your inputs for the industry?
Yeah, we know you have an opinion, so you must share it.
Go.
As we said, we focused our attention on materials, and we wanted to suggest that it's also important not only the material but also its origins. So it's important to use natural materials, recycle, reuse, but also consider its origins. So the origins of the material.
Geography, where are you?
Consider also the transportation costs.
Cool.
So excellent. Yeah, considering taking the big view, and I wouldn't have thought about transportation costs, for that example, and how things are being transported and sourcing of materials closer by. So go ahead, Bruno. You had
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask Sergio that question. Like, what do you take from your student team into your startup? Because I'm sure if you ended up doing a startup with that convincement, it's quite important for you.
Yeah, last year in the occasion of SuMoth Challenge, I had the opportunity to approach to the research in the field of eco-sustainability and recyclability. And when Fabio, so the CEO of NLComp, offered me to help them, I was enthusiastic because is the opportunity to find new solution that I studied the year before, but there is a completely new approach, because in the university is only research. Instead, here we have to do a product, so industrialized product and a commercial product. So we have to find a real solution that we can reduce a lot of times, and so the experience from the university is very important, because I can use the different materials used in this new sector, and now we are using it.
Awesome. And Bruno, we're at time. Again, we can, Michelle, I can pick your brain forever, and I'm sure the students know even more than all of us, as we know. So I want to thank everyone for participating, but I want to end with, Bruno told me that this morning after a repair.
Yesterday night, actually, which is...
What's that?
Yeah, it was yesterday night, which is even more hardcore than going in the morning. Yeah.
Well, I've seen the students with the C class pushing the limits too. So I want to know who is the driver of the Moth last night and today in the room.
Actually, no. But
no.
They have many. They have three skippers.
All right. Well, I just want to know. I just want to know from
cat because we want to go out.
They're looking at the water now as the wind is picking up. So.
I just want to ask one final question, which is that whoever has driven that moth, how is it performing, and what's the biggest improvement you can make in the next couple hours to make it better? Is it flying nicely? Everything working okay, or is there some improvements needed?
Yeah. We are setting the control system. We are still setting the control system, and we had some troubles with appendages because they break really a lot of times.
Yeah.
Thanks to Bruno, yesterday we fixed them, and we flied yesterday. Cool. So next couple of we are ready to fly right now, and are gonna go.
Great. Well, I leave it up to Bruno to get some footage of that and put it up for us to see. Like we're talking to Sergio about, I really honestly think the world is ready to feel better. I mean, it's proven this way in products around the world to feel better about more sustainable products. And it may not be an Exocet moth or a Mach 2 moth, but man, I bet you I can't wait to see the images of it flying. I can't wait to see the repairs and, carbon brakes too. But it has a much bigger environmental X in front of it than flax. So thank you everyone for joining. We can carry this conversation on tomorrow at the same time, but we're going to talk about design details and what the students have learned then. So Bruno, would you like to have the last word before we close out?
Yeah, thank you very much for joining for this open discussion on sustainability. And tomorrow we have the stage 1 evaluation, where with part of the jury that was reading the reports, and we will see how well they present in around 5 minutes their concept, and we're gonna ask some questions at the end to make sure we understood why they're doing this.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being brave enough to tackle sustainability. Yeah. And we'll see everyone tomorrow. And there's some more sessions coming up. So thanks to Gurit for the forum, Foiling Week 2021. And thank you everyone for participating. Thanks for the SuMoth challenge.
Thank you.
You guys.
Bye guys.
Ciao. Happy sailing.